All right, almost ready. What's the weather like out there with you where you are, Andy? Is it decent at least? Getting on spring?
Oh yeah, it was 70 degrees today and beautiful. And
Oh
so
boy.
naturally I spent a big chunk of it, staring at my computer screen, researching crypto and working on videos because that's, my affliction. Yeah, it was nice though.
Heck yeah, man. Yep, I saw your tweet today about putting in all this work so you could, earn crypto passively.
Yep, passive income, which just requires a ton of work every single day, researching and setting up and maintaining and tracking, but completely passive, 24/7 while you sleep. Gotta love it.
Heck yeah, heck yeah. And in fact, on that note, let's go ahead and dive in. Andy, thank you for joining us, your friend Andy, on the Twitter timeline. Andy, I have to say, you are one of the only crypto based, and I use that phrase loosely because I don't know if even you would consider yourself a crypto based, but a crypto based account that talks about crypto in a way that doesn't come across, quite frankly, as douchey. You are very like down to earth. You know what you're talking about, but you also make it really really accessible. And you are a great follow for anybody out there who is interested in crypto. Andy also started, along with a business partner, the Sleep Money Club. If you have any interest in crypto, getting involved in crypto, buying crypto, maybe even mining your own crypto, that is a great community to check out. So, Andy, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Well, thanks for having me, Steve. That was a very kind intro, and I'm glad I don't check the boxes of the crypto douchey category. That's a good thing to hear. I try my best to be balanced and reasonable, and just have fun with it.
That's right. That's right. And that's one of the reasons why I follow you and why people should follow you if they're interested in crypto. So my first question tonight is how I mean when I think on the timeline today, in fact, or maybe it was this week, you said you started in crypto about 5 years ago. So I'm really curious, and this was like before Bitcoin was really big and got as well known as it is now. What made you decide, like that very first purchase, the very first crypto buy? What made you decide to take the plunge and kind of see what this whole crypto world is about?
Yeah, so I mean, my first exposure to Bitcoin was like 2012, 2013 when nobody knew about it, and I had friends. I was in a bunch of like computer enthusiast groups online. We'd all be building computers and talking about nerdy stuff, and a few of them were like, "Hey, I've got my computer that I play games on, and I'm mining this like internet currency. It's called Bitcoin, and I mine like eight of these coins every single day, and you can lump them all together at the end of the week and sell them for like $30 per week." And I'm like, this sounds stupid. This is dumb. Why would I want to be a part of this? Making You can't make money out of thin air. You're crazy. So I ignored it, and obviously that was pretty dumb. And then I just kind of forgot about this whole thing until 2014, and then I bought my first little chunk of Bitcoin, and I bought some of it. I can't remember what I was buying online, but it wasn't like drugs or anything. But it was something that would only let me use Bitcoin to buy it. And so I went on Coinbase and I bought some and bought something, and I still had some left over. And then I forgot about it. And then in 2017, I looked at my Coinbase for whatever reason, and the price of the little bit of Bitcoin I had left was like going up. And then I started down this rabbit hole of learning all about it into 2017, and then leading up to that fall, as I was kind of digging in deeper and deeper with all this stuff. Well, that's when the last big crypto bull market was, and all this pandemonium and crazy, and it was in the news and all this stuff, and Bitcoin hit $20,000, and we all thought it was going to go to 100,000 right then and there, and then everything kind of fell out from under, and the whole space just dropped off a ledge, and we went to crypto winter. And I was just so fascinated by all of it that I guess when most people thought, hey, I put all this money and I lost all this money, it's a scam, it's not worth it, why am I doing this? I was just so intrigued. I'm like, no, there's something here. I just didn't do it in the best way possible. I bought into the euphoria, I bought into the hype, I bought into the FOMO. So kind of take a step back and like figure this thing out. And so I've basically, yeah, spent the past 4 years just, trudging through the trenches of understanding Bitcoin and then crypto at large and mining and running nodes and all this various stuff. And, with my modest amounts of money that I've been able to put into it, it's turned into something quite substantial for me. So it's been a really fun journey, though, but it's been a wild ride for sure.
So can you tell us if you are comfortable, and if you're not, maybe like just like a range or something, so you're not specific. How much do you think that you've poured into whether it's mining or just anything else related to crypto? And at this point, how much are you making passively from those crypto investments?
Oh yes, I mean I'm open and transparent about all my numbers. I think the last time I looked for my main crypto portfolio, which isn't really my passive portfolio, there's some crossover, but I have a lot of the passive stuff. I guess is like separate from the main portfolio. But the main portfolio is roughly $190,000, I guess, invested, and today it's worth like 1.2 million. And that does not include electricity, which I have spent, I don't know, $10 or $20,000, maybe more, over the past 5 years mining. I had a much bigger mining operation here at the house for a long time, and then I kind of toned it down over the past few years. I'd like to spin it back up, but yeah, some months were like $1,000 in electricity at the height of me running all this stuff. So I don't know, somewhere a little north of $200,000 or so, I'd say invested. Again, not including the newer stuff is a little bit tougher to track because it's kind of all over the place, but somewhere in the neighborhood.
Wow, so go big or go home, right?
Yeah, of course.
So how much do you, I mean, in your opinion, how much do you think people should, especially at this point with, the war in Eastern Europe and inflation really being uncontrollable, how much should people invest in crypto, in your humble opinion, versus stocks and real estate? I mean, should they get in like maybe 5% of their net worth, 50% of their net worth, or will it really just depend on your risk tolerance and your willingness to kind of jump into these waters that might seem a little bit confusing, but are also really lucrative if you know what you're doing?
Yeah, I think that's the operative statement there, Steve. Is like if you know what you're doing, because most people jump into all this stuff without knowing what they're doing, and that can work out for you, and it does for a lot of people. But for maybe a bigger section of people, it's tough lessons to be learned. So, I mean, I think number one is like you got to understand at least to some degree what all this stuff is, and spend some time learning about it. And then, like, start smaller and just put some money in various places. You're going to lose some money and make some mistakes, and you're going to get scammed or find a project that fails or whatever. These are all normal like crypto things that you have to kind of like learn life lessons in the crypto space. As far as percentage, yeah, it's totally up to like risk profile, risk tolerance, what your goals are, where your conviction is. You know, on one hand, someone's like, get a refinance your house, take a bunch of money out, and put it all in the crypto, rack up the credit cards, do all that stuff, and that's one way to go about it, I suppose. But you know, other people take a slice of just whatever they're making and they put it in crypto, and they have some kind of goal for overall, net worth percentage they want in crypto, which for a lot of people on the more conservative side, that'd be like 1 to 5% of their net worth. I'm obviously not on that end of the things. It's like 70%, or I guess a little bit lower than that now, 60% of my net worth. So it's been pretty substantial. And in fact, probably over the past 9 months, almost none of my money has that I make normally month to month has flown into the stock market. It's all been going into crypto, with some being set aside for some real estate stuff. But yeah, I don't know. There's a different answer for everybody. I'm a big proponent of following your gut, and as long as you have a plan that you feel is reasonable and practical for you to execute, and to just do that.
70% of your net worth. Wow, that was actually going to be one of my questions. Or 60%. 60%, I think you said. That's pretty good. Would do you? I kind of know. I think what your answer is going to be here, but do you think crypto is more risky than investing in index funds, investing in the stock market, especially right now as everything is so highly volatile?
It is it generally it is far more risky than index funds for sure. Right now, I don't know. Like if we cut, with all the conflict and stuff going on, there might be money flowing into crypto that is cut off from the rest of the financial world. We turn off Swift networks and in various ways to transfer money around. Well, people might start putting money into Bitcoin or other places and moving around. So I don't actually know where I'd put the risk at the current moment. I just see down markets like this as an opportunity. I'm like, hey, we're down. I don't know how many months ago it was. We were 69 or $68,000 Bitcoin. We're at $40,000 Bitcoin today. That seems like a pretty good place to be buying in because I'm very convinced it's going back there and then going north of those numbers.
Yeah, I like to do the opposite. I like to buy at the height. And I did that twice this year, and Bitcoin took a nosedive a week after both times. I think I bought in at like 57, and then again I bought some more at like 69 or something. And like you said, now it's like about 40. So I've probably lost half my investment. But really, just like anything else, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Andy, I mean, this is really a long-term play. It's not something that you're going to get in and get rich, at least not anymore, because the cat's kind of out of the bag, right? With Bitcoin, I don't see it skyrocketing like it did the last couple of years. I see it, over time, just continuing to trickle up, hopefully, just like index funds and just like the regular stock market would. But do you foresee? And I know you're not a soothsayer here; nobody really is. But would you agree or disagree that you were probably not going to see a huge uptick in Bitcoin again, like we did the last couple of years?
Well, first off, Steve, thank you for your service of buying those tops for all of us. It's much appreciated.
You're welcome,
That's not
Andy.
an easy job, but someone's got to do it. Um, yeah, I mean, I'm a crazy person. I'm like crazy, convicted, and optimistic about Bitcoin in the future. I mean, crypto at large, I think there's tons of opportunities aside from Bitcoin where you can make lots of money and become extremely rich in a short period of time. But as far as Bitcoin specifically, I'm that crazy person who thinks we're still going to see another 1,000 to 2,000x in the next 10 to 20 years with Bitcoin. 1 million to $2 million Bitcoin or higher is very much something I expect us to see. That is, again, something that most people would balk at and think is um, crazy talk, and that probably isn't going to happen. But I'm fully convinced that at some point it's going to continue just rapid adoption. It's going to eat away at other financial markets. It's going to become a global world reserve asset. It's going to completely eclipse gold in that market cap. I mean, if it just hits gold market cap, that's like $600,000 or $700,000 Bitcoin right there. There's just so much money in the world, and Bitcoin is such a great place to sink a bunch of it. And depending on who you are and what corporations uh, uh, or um, or individuals or whatever you are, institutions you are, I just think it's going to eat up a lot of that stuff in the future. But again, I could be 100% wrong and be putting my money in the wrong places, and everyone could laugh at my predictions in the next 5 or 10 years. I don't know.
Yeah, I think a lot of people were predicting big Bitcoin at 1,000 or 100,000 by the end of 2021. Obviously, that didn't happen. But I mean,
I
the
was
way it
one of
was,
those, Steve. I have a
you
I have a
know,
public tweet.
I couldn't let you go, man. I had to bring that up. So if somebody's listening to this and they want to get into crypto, they're not on board, but maybe they want to get their feet wet a little bit. And really, I was in this boat earlier this year where it's like there's this money making thing out there that I don't really understand that much, but I know there's potential here because a lot of people are making money from it. So if there's anybody out there who wants to get involved, but they don't want to dive in headfirst. They just want to kind of dip their feet and see what this is all about and kind of get some experience. What do you think is the safest and most approachable way for somebody brand new to crypto to get into this, take that first step and start buying, whether it's Bitcoin or Ethereum or something else? What do you think, in your opinion, is the safest way for somebody brand new to get into buying some crypto right now?
I mean, one, like I said earlier, I think just learning a little bit about it. But then once you have somewhat of an understanding of what you're buying, I mean, it's so easy to, so many apps and so many exchanges and so many brokerages where you can just buy a tiny amount of Bitcoin. You can buy yourself 50 or $500 worth of Bitcoin in a few seconds, So I think that that is a great first step. Just buy a little slice of Bitcoin and just see what it's like to just own a little bit, to buy it, see the process. And then, you can expand out from there. You can start researching the rest of the market and seeing what else is out there and seeing all these incredible projects and great ideas. And there's so many different sectors within crypto. It becomes very overwhelming very quickly. So I always recommend it's like start small, like have a very small circle of your understanding and then just slowly like poke and prod your way past that, and kind of figure out where you might want to throw some extra money. Like in my case, I went all in on every kind of crazy thing there was back in 2017, 2018, but I didn't really understand half of it. I bought things because people on Twitter said to buy it. I bought things because I watched YouTube videos about it. And I just threw money at things because they were going to be the next big whatever. And I just didn't understand any of it. And I got wrecked and lost tons of money and learned some hard lessons. But I love those experiences because they taught me some great lessons, one, but two, gave me these like mental filters to kind of push projects and stuff through. And I still make lots of mistakes, still lose lots of money, but my wins have been overwhelmingly big wins compared to my losses. And I think that's just taking lessons and learning them as I go, and just kind of figuring out where I think the market's going and stuff like that. But all that just comes with like time. Like you just gotta spend time in it. You're not going to figure this stuff out in like a couple weeks or a couple months. And the longer you sit in it and you're researching it and figuring things out, the more this type of stuff makes sense to you. But if you don't have any desire whatsoever to be that guy who's every night like 3 or 4 hours staring at the computer screen learning about crypto, well, then there's just, put some money in Bitcoin. Mainly, I always recommend Ethereum or some of the other top coins like Solana or Terra, things like that. And then just forget about it. Just let it go for several years or a decade or so, and hopefully wake up one day surprised. But yeah, there's all kinds of different levels of commitment here.
Sure. Yeah, and I have a couple of requests to come up on stage and ask Andy a question. I don't really want to do that because I want this to stay just Andy and I for now. But if you do have a question for Andy, click on my profile picture, shoot me a DM. I am more than happy to read those questions and then pass them over to Andy. In fact, there is a question from somebody in the audience. Please ask him his thoughts about other coins like Chainlink, etc. And you had sort of dabbled into that in your last answer. There's more than just Bitcoin. There's more than just Ethereum. So, what are some of your thoughts about some of the other coins out there that might have a potential to go up, but aren't the ones that everybody knows about, like Bitcoin and Ethereum? What else out there is striking your eye as a potential investment opportunity?
Yeah, so this is another area where I probably am not the crowd favorite always, because I have, I have a portfolio full of all kinds of crazy stuff. But at the end of the day, the only reason I have all this stuff is I want as much Bitcoin as I can possibly get. So, I have so many projects I love and I think probably have legs and will probably exist into the future. But ultimately, a lot of the things I'm in, I buy them as early as I possibly can because I think they're great. And then I later on, years later, maybe when they've, had quite the handsome return, I want to roll that over into having more and more Bitcoin. So that's kind of my overarching strategy with all this. But that doesn't mean I don't think other coins are cool or have long term possibilities and stuff. Like my actual biggest position in my portfolio isn't Bitcoin. It was for a long time, but now it's actually a project called Flux, which I think is an incredible pick and shovel play for Web3 with building a user run infrastructure to be kind of like a decentralized Amazon Web Services. So that's one I'm a really big fan of. But other things that are in top of my portfolio, like I said a minute ago, Terra, ticker is Luna. They're a layer one blockchain, just like Ethereum. It's like you build stuff on top of it. And they have a product called Anchor Protocol, which is like a savings account, crypto savings account that uses stable coins, pays at 19.5% APY. And I'm a huge fan of that whole ecosystem and that project. I think it's incredible what they're building. So, of course, I like their base layer coin as well. Um, Aside from that, I've got other things in that my top, 5 or 10, like Kadena, KDA, um, uh, what else? Pre-search, Deeper Network, Avalanche, Phantom, Solana. These are all, I have various convictions about various things, and I think some will make it, some won't. But again, my number one thing here is like, if a lot of these work out in the long term and turn out to be the next Ethereum or the, whatever, that's awesome. But more than likely, I will have exited a big portion of those positions when they hit the levels that I've kind of mapped out in my mind or on my spreadsheets, and convert that into more and more Bitcoin, because that's the thing I really, really want into the future.
Gotcha. So you're basically going all in with Bitcoin, but you're using some of these other cryptocurrencies to leverage your Bitcoin assets. Like you said, you just kind of transfer them in after buying something else that you think is going to go up, a different coin. It goes up, then you roll that over into Bitcoin to really. I mean, you're effectively you're doubling down on Bitcoin. If Bitcoin does well, you are going to be filthy, filthy rich, sir.
Yeah. So yeah, but I will never fully exit many of my positions I'm in with all these other projects. But a big chunk of them, or the bulk of them, yes, they will be rolled over into Bitcoin as I go. I have price targets for everything, but that's just where, that's my conviction. That's my thesis for the future of crypto and finance, and I might not be right.
Let me switch gears a little bit. Do you believe the government has a responsibility to keep people safe from crypto scams? I'm sure you've heard of the scams. We've all heard of the scams where somebody will create a coin and people will buy into it and can't sell it, and then the creators will just bail and take a couple $1 million with them. That happened a few, I guess, months ago now with Squid. So what do we do? I mean, yes, people should do their due diligence. They shouldn't invest in something that they don't know. But aside from that, do you believe that the government has any authority? And the whole concept around crypto is really not it's away from government. It's decentralized. It's not controlled. But is there a gray area? Is there a middle ground between letting people invest in crypto and letting the government make sure that there aren't crypto scams? Or should this be kind of more like a free for all where things happen and you just have to be careful? What are your thoughts there?
Well, I mean, I don't believe the government can keep us safe from most things. Number one. So, the idea of them like digging their grubby fingers into all this stuff too kind of scares me. But I know that regulation is inevitable, and I know that probably some level of regulation is probably a good thing for the long term for people. But honestly, I don't know how you regulate half this stuff. Like, there is so much going on in this space. It's so massive, and there's so much complexity to it compared to the traditional financial systems, that it's just so outside of the realm of understanding, compared to all that stuff. So I can't imagine like people being savvy enough in our government to actually wrap their heads around the majority of this and be able to successfully control it in a way that makes sense. But maybe I'm selling them all short. I don't know. I'm just, I'm in the middle of like, let people do their own thing, and it'll kind of regulate itself. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the answer to that is. I don't know what my opinions are on that overall. I think a lot of the understanding of not being scammed, and bad things out there, and all these schemes and pyramids and stuff like that, is just something that the system has to get out of the way, and people have to naturally learn about and figure out, just like we did with the current traditional markets. And then something will emerge one day that is not representative of what we're in today, and to look very different. It'll be an iterative process, and it will evolve. And I have no idea what that will look like or be like. And I'm hoping that is better than what we currently have.
Yeah, I happen to agree. I mean, I don't think the government can really protect us from much of anything, and I think they've made that point over and over and over again. So I'm with you that I think they should stay out as much as possible, because that's just going to get very complicated and, quite frankly, very expensive and very bureaucratic very, very quickly if that happens. So a follow-up question to that is, if we are just kind of policing ourselves here, just kind of going through the process of acquiring crypto and avoiding the scams, in your experience over the years of buying crypto and avoiding the scams, or maybe you have been scammed before, I don't know. What are your like top couple tips that people can take to, things to watch out for so they can avoid buying a coin that might not be realistic or quite frankly might not be viable? What do you do there? What do you look for? Are there signs that you can see that kind of might lead you away from those riskier investments?
I mean, I think the idea of if it's too good to be true, it probably is. Now, it's crypto, so there are exceptions to that rule, but for most people, as a brand new person, that might be some good advice just getting into the space. Um, but really, like as you educate yourself on like how a crypto wallet works and how to set one up and stuff, you're going to learn some principles about those basic things. And there's things like your keys, your seed phrase to your wallet, the actual literal keys to unlock your crypto wallet. And that's something that you never share with anybody, even when the support person is asking you for your seed phrase because they need it to help you figure out your problem. You never give that to anybody online. That's like a huge rule that everyone who is savvy in the crypto space tries to follow, because the scammers and schemers out there are quite crafty, and you will ask a question on Twitter and say, "I'm having a problem with my withdrawal on Coinbase," and then, well, wouldn't you know it, there's the Coinbase account replying to you and saying, "I'm the Coinbase support. Let me help you." And then they get you in a DM and they ask you for your information. And then you're like, "Where did all my money go?" Well, they took it because they had the keys to your wallet. So unfortunately, there is this element of like self responsibility and self custody in crypto. And there's some people that are like all gung ho, it's all 100% self custody, and you hold the keys to your stuff, and you never share with anybody, and you are responsible by yourself solely for all your crypto holdings. And then there's the other end of the spectrum that's like, let's lean on all these companies like the Coinbases of the world, and let's have them have the responsibility of hanging on to this stuff. And then there's people who are kind of in between where they can do a little bit of both. So you kind of have to figure out what your level of comfort is with that type of stuff, one. But two, just some general practices is like, don't share your seed phrase. Don't give people access to your money that you don't know or that's reaching out to you. People that you follow online, like me, YouTubers, are not ever going to send you a DM asking you about your wallet or your balances, stuff like that. It's just some general, what I feel like is common sense stuff, but I know to a newbie it might not be common sense yet. So yeah, it's just like if it feels fishy in your gut or you're wondering why someone's asking you something, it's more likely than not a red flag and a scam of some kind. The other thing too is that whole like too good to be true. It's uh, like ask people, like find people in the space who you think are smart or savvy. Because join communities, figure out places that you can chat with other people who are smarter in the space than you. And then when you find a website that's this new project that's promising you, 50% return every single day, and for whatever reason that's not a red flag to you, but you're like, well, let me check, and you go ask the community, is this a place I should put my money? And everyone's like, do not connect your wallet to that account, to that website. Do not put your money in there. Well, then listen to the people who've have some experience in this space. So definitely, like, those are some just very general things. I could probably talk more about security stuff, but that's also stuff that just as have more time and experience in this space, you learn those things.
I have a very similar question there. It's kind of like a follow on. So let's say somebody new starts buying some crypto, maybe at Coinbase or something, and they, create their default wallet and they have a seed phrase. At what point? I mean, there's this concept of cold storage, right? Taking it basically outside of the internet where something only you control. So it's in theory 100% safe. So in your opinion, when do you make that decision where, okay, now it's time, I'm doing enough, or maybe I have enough invested or I have enough bought? When do you think about taking that outside of maybe your Coinbase account and creating your own cold storage system to really protect all of your crypto assets? When does that happen?
I mean, for some people, that never happens. They're very comfortable trusting Coinbase and believe that Coinbase will keep their funds safe. And then there's other people who think every exchange is going to be hacked or compromised at some point. So you got, I guess, number one, you have to figure out what your kind of comfort level is and where you're willing to put your trust. And it also comes down to like amounts. Like to some people, having $100,000 on Coinbase is no big deal. It's just another day of the week. To other people, it's like more money than they've seen in an entire year in a savings account or something. And so that seems crazy to trust a company with that amount of money. Or they feel a great amount of comfort because they trust Coinbase. So it's a really hard question to answer. Honestly, it comes down to like where you personally feel comfortable. For me, there are certain limits that I feel comfortable having my money out there, like having the bulk of my Bitcoin online is not something I feel comfortable with. So I have most of my Bitcoins in cold storage in what's called a multi-sig wallet, which means I'm not the only controlling party of it. And there are multiple keys that are all required to unlock and send funds out of it. And they're all very securely held in different geographical locations. But I'm on the far end of the spectrum with like nerdiness and stuff. There's people that are even crazier than me when it comes to that stuff. There's all kinds of levels here, but I wouldn't have for long periods of time unless I'm doing a big buy or something. Have like 1 to 2 Bitcoins sitting on an exchange just hanging out. That seems like I'm asking for someone to steal that from me. So it's just I use exchanges, for example, transactionally. I put money even bigger amounts on there. I do my transaction. I take my money out. Uh, Different people have different approaches for that type of stuff. There are certainly places like interest accounts like Anchor where I do have larger amounts of money, but I have some level of trust in that. And also, it is a smaller portion of my portfolio that if it actually did get compromised and stolen, well, then I lost 3% of my portfolio. That really sucks, but it does not kill me.
Boy, you said a lot there that I quite frankly don't completely understand. Is this something that you like go through in your sleep money club where somebody can just really go from nothing and just maybe over the course of a couple of weeks or a couple of months really understand this stuff? Is this the level of mentorship, I guess, I would say, that you provide in your club? Or is it more of like general crypto investing and here's how you get started? I mean, how deep, I guess, do you go within your community as you're talking about these things and teaching these concepts?
It's both. I mean, we if people want to know, if they want to hear my super nerdy approach to wallets and seed phrases and multi sig and all that good stuff. That's over most newer people's heads. I'll talk about it and I'll answer all their questions in our community. Or if we just want to talk, overarching like broad strategies with crypto passive income or investing and stuff, well, then we talk about that too. So there's no real limit on what we talk about. And there's just a place of like a bunch of like-minded people chatting about all this stuff that I get super excited and passionate about. And wherever the conversations and stuff goes, well, then I'm happy to go along for the ride. But yeah, there's no limit on what the things we talk about.
Love it, love it. Okay, cool. So really, there's two sides of this. There's investing in or buying crypto. Some people don't like to use the word investing in crypto because you really are buying the coin, and hopefully the coin increases value. You make money, or you at least increase value with what you bought. But then there's the other side of this coin where you're actually, I use that term loosely, coin, where you're mining, you're actually creating Bitcoin, you're creating these cryptocurrencies. So, can you briefly explain the concept of mining a cryptocurrency coin, like, for example, Bitcoin, and kind of what is involved with that? And, could you use like a spare laptop, or are we talking about where you need a high performance machine? You need to spend a few grand on Newegg or something and get high performance hardware because, quite frankly, that's what mining Bitcoin requires.
Yeah. So first off, there not every coin out there is mineable. There's different ways to make new cryptocurrencies to mint new coins each day. Some they make all their initial supply in one go at the very beginning, and it never changes, and there's no constantly inflating amount. Other ones use proof of stake, where you're staking coins and you have nodes or some version of consensus that way. All these terms can get kind of a little crazy for a newer person right off the bat. But for mining, Bitcoin is one of the easiest ones to explain because it's the OG of the crypto world. So Bitcoin is what's called a proof of work blockchain, and that means that you need machines. In the case of Bitcoin, very powerful machines to do mathematical equations. And when they do these mathematical equations, they're solving a block of these equations, this data. And when a block of this data has been solved by all this compute power, there is something called a block reward. And that block reward is then shared with all the miners, all the machines that that helped solve that block. And then once that block is solved, the next one pops up, and then the next one. And that's the chain, blockchain. So it's a chain of these blocks that are being solved. And as they're solved, rewards are new Bitcoins are being minted. These rewards are paid out to the miners. And then that's how the process works. With Bitcoin, once upon a time, you could, on a laptop, you could mine, tens or 50 or 100 per day. But Bitcoin has this kind of amazing portion of the code, in that it has a difficulty algorithm that as more compute power is poured onto the network, the difficulty of solving the equations becomes increased. It's an increased difficulty. So you have to throw more power at it to get the same kind of result. And this prevents one person from having, a supercomputer and mining all the Bitcoin in a day, and they're, in this big data center or something. So as more hardware is poured into the network, as more compute power is poured into the Bitcoin network, it gets harder and harder to actually mine Bitcoins out of it. And this is a very similar way. Most other proof of work cryptocurrencies work much the same way, but many of them are in earlier stages. And Ethereum, for example, is still largely mined by graphics cards, though there is a bigger and bigger supply of ASICs, which are these, that's another term. So ASIC is basically this machine that's this ultra powerful computer specifically built just to mine a certain cryptocurrency. Each of these machines is only built for Ethereum or Bitcoin or fill in the blank coin. ASIC stands for application specific integrated circuit. It's a processor just like you have in your computer that renders stuff. In this case, it only computes Bitcoin algorithm. So anyways, Ethereum still mostly is your everyday graphics card out of your gaming computer, just in mass scale. But there are these new machines that are running on the network. But that is one that is shifting away from proof of work and going to proof of stake, which is a whole different thing. But essentially, if you get in earlier on certain projects, you can still mine it with, your gaming computer. There's very few things you can mine with just a laptop these days. But there certainly are still opportunities. For example, my biggest position in my portfolio, again, is Flux. That's something I've been mining with my graphics card since 2018. And it has made me a lot of money because I speculatively mined it with the expectation that one day it would be worth a lot more. Once upon a time, I was mining 800 to 1,000 Flux coins per day. And now Flux is worth over $1.50 per coin. And my same machines can only mine like 2 or 3 Flux coins per day. So it scales over time with price and difficulty and all that stuff. So I said a lot of things there. I don't know if I confuse people, but that's some of the basics.
Flux. Now, be honest now, Andy. Was that, you kind of speculated on it doing well. Was that kind of dumb luck, or did you see something there? Like this, certain things happened. This coin is going to go somewhere, and that's why you got into it. What exactly did you see that made you dive into Flux and start mining Flux? What was that?
Oh, I mean, there's certainly some element of luck to all of this. I mean, it's fairly crude to do what a lot of people who reply to my tweets and stuff and saying I'm just lucky. It's all luck because it's certainly not. I mean, I put in a lot of hard work and time and all this stuff, but I can't deny there is an element of luck to this. But Flux is, one that for whatever reason, I when I saw it announced and I was there when they first launched their blockchain, it just hit a lot of the right boxes for me, and I liked what I was seeing, and so I thought this seems like a good one. But certainly, in that same period, I was mining lots of other things too, and some have worked out, and quite a few of them have not. I kind of take an approach. I call it a poor man's venture capitalist. With my very modest resources, my mining machines, and then the money I make, which once upon a time was not very much money. It's only these recent years I've actually been able to make what most people call substantial amounts of money. Um, Very modest amounts of income invested. I had to pick and choose, but I kind of still did a shotgun approach. Like I mined a handful of different things and I invested in a handful of different things, just things that I thought might have future potential, just hoping, like a venture capitalist, that one of them is that unicorn. And thankfully, I've had a couple of unicorns, but I've had a few that maybe are just regular horses, but they've still done pretty well. And I've certainly had plenty that have just outright failed, or been scams, or devs ran off with the money, all that stuff. So yeah, certainly some element of luck in here, but also mix that in with just a bunch of me looking for opportunity and using whatever level of listening to my gut has worked for me, to my advantage.
We have about 15 minutes left, so if you have any further questions for Andy, don't uh, feel free, I'll say it that way, to reach out to me through DM and I will pass your question along. I have been doing some research on mining and I stumbled on this Investopedia article. And here's what they said about cryptocurrency mining. And I really want to get your opinion on this. They said cryptocurrency mining is painstaking, costly, and only sporadically rewarding. So I'm gonna guess that yeah, that could be true. But if you hit the right coin and you do the right things, it's the opposite of those things. I mean, yeah, it might be costly, but it's certainly rewarding. So my question is, what is your initial reaction to what Investopedia said? And if somebody out there has interest in mining, how do what steps could they take to make it not so painstaking, costly, and only sporadically rewarding?
Yeah. So I mean, well, right off the bat, like if you were to just buy some graphics cards and learn how to set up a mining rig, you probably are somewhere in the realm of 12 to 14 months after making that initial investment in hardware before you break even on it and start to actually enjoy a return on your investment. And to some people, that seems dumb. I have to wait a year before I make money. To other people who buy like houses as investments or other things, think that's incredible. So I don't know which end of the spectrum people are on with that type, thinking like that. I personally think mining is a fantastic. I mean, it also depends on who Investopedia is saying it's sporadically rewarding to. But if you're the person who is doing the mining, I think it's rewarding, period. If you enjoy that type of thing, I think it's a great hobby. And if you were to get serious about it, it could be a cool job. But at the very least, at the hobby level, it's just fun. If you like tinkering and like building computers and stuff, well, then you're probably going to love mining. And then there's, the conservative approach, the basic approach, which you just choose what the most profitable coin is. You point your rigs to that, and every day you enjoy a very stable return. Or you do what I did, and you pointed at a bunch of stuff that's purely speculative when half of it's not even listed on exchanges yet and has no value, and you're just hoping that one of the things you thought had really good potential actually does fulfill that potential. So as far as if you want to get started, it's really easy. First off, go find my friend Stephen Wealthy. Type him into search on Twitter, and he has some incredible free guides on how to get started on mining. Literally starting with just your gaming computer desktop at home, nothing else. You don't need to buy anything, you don't spend any money. You can just learn how to do it on a basic gaming computer desktop. If you have a decently recent video card in there, congratulations, you can start mining. There's software you can install. It's very basic. It's plug and play. Just install it and start running it. You can learn the very basics of mining that way. And then, as you learn about it and plug away at it, and if it piques your interest, well, then yeah, you can build your own machines and expand out and build a whole, have a mining garage or a mining shed, or do whatever you want to do. But there's all kinds of levels of involvement. But I found to be extremely rewarding over the years, just from a hobby standpoint. But then, of course, monetarily, it's been fantastic for me too. And then there is one other thing here that maybe Investopedia is hinting at, which is mining does kind of have a bad rep for wasting less energy and being an environmental disaster, this and that. And that is completely up to your perspective on things. When it comes to like Bitcoin mining and the power consumption used, I am of the belief that it's energy well spent to build a superior financial system. It actually uses a fraction of what the traditional markets use, and I think it's a very efficient way to use energy to do this. But a lot of people might not agree with me and think it's a terrible thing. So that's all about that end of the thing is all about where your conviction is, where you think the future is going, and whether you think it's a worthy pursuit of electricity or not.
Yeah, someone who lives off grid. I mean, I'm not connected to the grid whatsoever. I have solar panels out in our property. So for me, that's probably not going to be quite as, I don't know, I guess realistic as somebody who probably is connected to the grid. I think earlier you said you spend what, like 10 or 20,000 over the year, or maybe a couple years. You estimated setting up and controlling and maintaining your mining rig. Is that true?
Yeah, over the years, and yeah, if you're off grid, then that changes things. But hey, maybe add a few more panels there, Steve, and get some
Right.
miners rolling. But also there's so many neat opportunities. Like there's a whole bunch of Bitcoin folks out there who are filling shipping containers full of these mining machines, and they're going and finding these abandoned like oil wells on just land out in the desert and stuff that are no longer viable to get oil out of the ground. But they're still venting natural gas, and most of the time, because of regulations, they're just venting the stuff into the atmosphere, which is actually worse than just putting it through an engine or a generator, and at least cleaning it up a little bit that way. And they cap those things, pump that natural gas through a generator, and mine Bitcoin. There's all this like stuff. There's all this available energy out there in the world. Plus, not to mention, like traditionally, most Bitcoin mining has been with like hydro and various things. Bitcoin miners care about one thing. They care about available, cheap electricity. They don't care what the source is. They just want to chase that. And in lots of places, that's energy that we want miners to consume. So, I mean, you can argue both sides of the thing, and people often do. But for me, it's just, yeah, it's the end of the day. It's like, do I think this expenditure of energy is worth it? And for me, yes.
We have a question. Can you ask Andy about staking? Now, I know staking is a way of like earning quote unquote rewards for holding cryptocurrencies, but how exactly does staking work? And I mean, does that work into your particular crypto portfolio much?
Yeah, there's a bunch of different ways you can stake coins, and there's kind of it really depends on the project what the functionality is. But the idea is you take some coins, you lock them up into an account or a wallet or something, and those locked up coins give some kind of functionality to the blockchain at large. And for doing so, you get a reward. A lot of the things I do that's maybe not even borderline staking, but are very similar. I run a bunch of crypto nodes, and these nodes either do functions like send and receive transactions, they validate transactions, they keep a copy of the blockchain stored on them, or like Flux, they actually provide like infrastructure. They're virtual servers out there that you have for compute power. And by running these things, by locking up your coins to do this thing, you get a reward and a payout in return. So there's various ways you can stake. I mean, it's a very simplest. You can go into um, some of the major brokerages and stuff. They allow you to stake your coins or hold your coins there and earn an interest rate. But then you can go into much more detail than that. But essentially, it's taking your coins that would ordinarily just be sitting in your wallet and giving them some kind of function, and you get a reward for doing so.
Well, that's brilliant. Yeah, I mean, making money for things just sitting there. That sounds like a good deal to me.
Oh yeah, 100%.
So Luna One, another question. Have you looked into that much, or do you do much with Luna One?
With Luna, like Terra blockchain. Is that what you're being
Yes,
asked?
yes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I hold quite a bit of Terra, the coin itself, and then yeah, I have my entire emergency fund in Anchor Protocol, which is their savings vehicle. along with I use it as part of my profit capture strategy. As I make money from my various nodes in crypto passive income, I roll off percentages of that into Anchor protocol and stack it there and earn my nearly 20% APY. So yeah, I love that ecosystem, and I'm only barely tapping into it. There's a whole bunch of other ways you can really take advantage of it. It's pretty incredible.
Wow, that's that's. I mean, this spaces has really opened my eyes to exactly everything that's going on here. I'm far from an expert, but I mean, as somebody who just bought into Bitcoin and a little bit of Ethereum this year, I'm just scratching the surface, and I think a lot of people are in that same realm where they own a little bit, maybe they own a lot, but they're really not they're really not doing maybe a tenth of everything here in crypto. So one of my last questions here is, if somebody does just own some Bitcoin, maybe just own some Ethereum, but they want to get a little bit more into crypto, but they don't want to go into mining quite yet because that's a lot involved there. Can you give me one or two opportunities that some of these people can explore, whether it's new investment opportunities or new coins, or maybe buying more of a certain coin? I mean, if you were just starting out and you just had some Bitcoin and some Ethereum, what would be your next step to get a little bit more involved without going too deep yet into crypto until you truly understand how all these things work?
Yeah, well, I mean, if I had smaller amounts of just Bitcoin and just Ethereum, then the first thing I do is I put that stuff to work. I would find an online interest account that is not killed by current regulations and stuff in the U.S. I'd find one that pays out a decent interest rate, and I would move my Bitcoin and Ethereum into them and start earning anywhere from like 4 to 7% APY on those assets. And that way they're doing something. And then once I've done that and they're earning something, and my interest is now peaked, then I can start looking into other ways to start not just investing but earning with crypto. I mean, mining is one aspect, staking is another. Again, I've mentioned it a couple times, but running nodes is an entire world out there for crypto. But there's also, like, you can run hardware devices. There's some fantastic projects, like I'm a big fan of Helium, which you can buy a $500 device that uses about 5 watts of power per year, so you'll never notice it on your energy bill. You buy this $500 device, it sends out a long range radio wireless signal, and it connects with all the other hotspots in your area, and it makes a mesh network for Internet of Things devices. And for providing this network, you get paid in their native token as a reward. And if you're in the right area with the right antenna on your hotspot, these things will pay themselves off in 2 to 3 months, and then it's just a little profit machine sitting in your house that you never think about. And there's hundreds of other opportunities like that out there. Not to mention, like, you get really deep in the weeds and start doing yield farming and trading of various kinds. I mean, there's a million ways you can slice it. It's so wildly huge and overwhelming. Some people would call me an expert in some of this stuff to some degree, and I do not feel like an expert at all because there's so much I don't understand about the entire crypto space at large because it's so massive and so many opportunities. Not to mention NFTs and all kinds, and gaming and play to earn, and oh my gosh, you keep going and on and on.
Yeah, I have a lot to learn here, to be perfectly honest. But Andy, thank you so much for being on. We are at the end of our spaces, but before I let you go, before I let everybody go, please say a few words about your Sleep Money Club and who it's designed for, what you talk about, and the value that you provide people in your community.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, Steve. And yeah, if anybody likes what I have to say, or if you've watched my videos and you like the type of content and stuff I make, then you'll probably love Sleep Money Club. The link to it is in my bio, my Twitter bio. And yeah, it's a club, a community of like-minded people who are all about crypto and wealth building, and figure out strategies on how to make more money with all this stuff, and be successful long term. But it's kind of created out of a need. I created it with my friend Colin, the Decade Investor, also here on Twitter, out of this need to, like, have other people to chat with this stuff about, because in my day-to-day life, most people I talk to, friends and family and stuff, aren't into all this stuff. So it's kind of built out of necessity to find people who are like me, and want to talk about this stuff, but also who want to long term build successful stuff and want to learn strategies and find out about new projects and stuff as they come out, and just have an outlet for all that stuff. So if any of that describes you, then definitely consider it. But no worries if it's not for you. You can always check out my YouTube channel, which is also Your Friend Andy, like my name here on Twitter, and I put out loads of free, high quality videos there. But thanks for having me, Steve.
You are very welcome. And if you're not already following Andy, please do so. If you have any interest in crypto, quite frankly, even if you don't have interest in crypto, there's a lot of value in following Andy. So give him a follow if you're not already. So yes, thanks again, Andy. Thanks again, everybody, for joining us. And that is the end of this Spaces. I will see you on the timeline. Have a good evening.